There are a lot of people online that are telling you how to start an EV charging business, but I can tell that they've never actually done it before because the information they're giving is super basic. But the thing is, I actually have done it before, twice. So in this video, I'm going to give you a really high level overview of all the steps I would take if I had to do it all over again and start my own EV charging business here today in 2025. Before we dive in, my name is Trevor, and if you have questions or need help with your own EV charging business, feel free to give me a shout. I'd be happy to help. My email is contact@strongenergy-ev.com. Okay, so step number one is we want to assess the market, right? We want to make sure there's a demand before we start our business. We don't want to try to sell something that nobody wants to buy. And this is actually probably why you're here. You've probably looked around your neighborhood or your city and have seen more and more EVs popping up on the streets. And if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, which I'm sure you do, you've probably asked yourself, I wonder how much money you can make from EV chargers. And that's actually our first question. Is there a demand for EV charging in your area? And here's a pro tip. If you're not quite sure if there's a demand, ask yourself if you have cheap electricity in your area. If you have cheap electricity, there's a good chance that more people drive EVs because it's cheaper to charge them. And it's also good for us because we can make more money from marking up and reselling that electricity to EV drivers. The cheaper the electricity, the higher the profit margins. All right, next is choosing our level of EV charging. So some people want to start in the big leagues with the level 3, or technically called the DC fast chargers, but those are monsters and they cost a lot of money to get started. There is a much higher profit margin, but that's not where I would start. I also wouldn't start with level 1 because those are for home use and you can't make a profit from reselling the electricity. So we're going to hit the Goldilocks zone with the middle ground of level 2 chargers. Level 2 chargers are cheaper, they're easier to install, and this means that we can get to market a lot faster. The price of level 2 chargers range anywhere from like $500 to even up to $5,000. But remember, we're just getting started. So the charger we're going to choose is fairly entry level. It's still pretty good quality, but this one costs 700 US. Okay, the third step is software. We'll need our EV charger to be connected to the internet for a bunch of different reasons, but the main one is processing the payments. And we'll need the software to do this. So another term for this is networking your charger. Now, there's so many different EV charging software companies that you can use to connect your charger to, but one of my favorites is called ChargeLab. I've done a lot of work with ChargeLab, and I actually had a refresher training call with them last week, and it just reminded me how much I like this company. There are a few different software companies I'd recommend, but right now ChargeLab is top of mind, and I can actually get you a discount if you're interested in using their services. So feel free to give me a shout through my email and I can connect you. So as I said, there's tons of different software companies for EV charging, and this also means that there's lots of different prices. So with networking, you'll need to pay a monthly networking fee, and this will be per charger per month. The networking fees range pretty greatly, but usually they're as low as maybe like $15 to as high as could be $100 depending on what contract you're on. I'd say usually it floats between maybe $20 to $50, and ChargeLab, for instance, is $25 per month for level 2 chargers. Some EV charging companies are both. They're both the hardware and the software. Some are primarily hardware and some are primarily software. ChargeLab is primarily software, but they do offer the hardware as well. So in this case, when we're starting this company, that's mine, I'm going to order both my hardware and my software from ChargeLab. So we're going to get that level 2 charger and the yearly package for the networking. So right now our investment is $1,000. If you're wondering how I just came up with $1,000, that's 700 for the charger and $25 per month times 12, that's 300. 300 plus 700 is $1,000. Okay, the next step is probably the most crucial step to figure out if you're going to be successful or not. And this is the installation. The cost to install chargers can swing so greatly, it's crazy. I've seen the cost to install a level 2 charger be as low as like 3 grand, and I've seen it go all the way up to like 30 grand. It really just depends on the location. So we want to make sure we're really careful about choosing the right location so it's not super expensive. So what are we looking for? We're looking for our charger to be wall mounted. We want to make sure that the charger is as close to the electrical room as possible. And we want to make sure that there's enough room on the panel for the charger to have its own dedicated circuit. Okay, so that's what we're looking for in terms of install, but what types of location are we looking for in order to get a high utilization? So we want a lot of people visiting the location, and we also want them sticking around for a few hours. Remember, I went through lots of trial and error with this. So first I was thinking, oh, this is obvious. Let's just put our level 2 charger in at like a shopping mall where there's tons of people visiting, right? That makes the most amount of sense. But I don't know if you've ever been in sales. I've been doing this for 10 years, and the bigger the business is, the more people in the organization, the harder it is to get to the top to reach a decision maker and get an answer. Yeah, having our chargers in a shopping mall would be great, but if the headquarters is in New York or Toronto, good luck getting all the way up to the top of the chain and having someone that can actually make a decision. So for my new business, I'm focusing on locally owned small businesses. I want to be able to walk into the store and be able to talk to the owner directly, or at least be able to talk to someone that's a 1 degree separation away from the owner. So think like local coffee shops, maybe a mom and pop restaurant, or someone you know that lives in your city that can give you a yes or no answer. You don't want to hear a bunch of maybes and then you're following up and you can't get a straight answer. I'd rather hear a fast no than a long maybe. All right, so now I've found my spot. It's Johnny's Coffee on Main Street, let's say. And this is great because I know this is a busy location. It's on a super popular street. There's lots to do in the area. So let's say people stop by, they plug their car in. I know they might stick around for a while because they can walk up and down Main Street and let's say go to a mall or go shopping and do some other things, which will leave the car there charging for a long amount of time. I also was able to talk to Johnny directly, and Johnny said, yeah, like we've been looking into EV charging. We just didn't know how to get started, and we're super interested if you're willing to help us out here. Again, if you need help with anything or have questions about your own EV charging business, feel free to give me a shout and I'd be happy to help. I can give you some rough pricing and quotes. I can provide you with some referrals on different hardware and software companies, and also give you some tips for the electricians to use for the install. Hopefully that gave you a pretty solid lay of the land here, and I'd love if you were to subscribe to the channel and keep following the journey. Thanks so much for checking in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.